All right, everyone, welcome in. Good morning. Betsperts Golf here for the first look 2024 PGA Championship. Here, as always, with my boy Ron Kloss, PGA Splits 101, who's been grinding into the wee hours of the night to put out the preview here on the site. First look at Valhalla for this year's PGA Championship. Buddy, what's going on? I got you.
Yeah, it's going to be a great week here. We've got the best of the best here. All the live guys. It's, when you have Rory playing like he's playing, and then, Scotty, coming off his win, and then, you've got Brooks and all these guys, and it's just a great week. And, the PGA is kind of underrated. I think it's always been underrated, and another interesting course this week. So excited to get into it.
Yeah, great point at the top. I think the PGA in general has shifted in the last handful of years. It feels more U.S. Open-like. I feel like there's more, like from a corollary course standpoint, if we want to look at previous leaderboards or success that guys have had, I think you can have some callbacks to what's happened in the last handful of years at U.S. Opens as well. Lower scoring, those days have kind of gone away. Like I feel like the Harding Park one is almost like its own thing where we get into like the low teens there to win. Like for the most part, guys we're struggling to break par, now, which is not always what the PGA was, back in the day. So I think they've kind of, I think the move from like late summer to being at this time of year in May as well, I think is impactful, and has impacted some things as well. And but yeah, you highlighted at the top, we have these massive storylines, which we should have every major. And obviously we have the influx of live guys, and this year is different too, because we have some of the invites and some different things that have kind of expanded that player pool. I think in your preview, you've highlighted 16 live guys here. Not all have earned their way. We're starting to get some of like, the PGA of America is having to make some choices and extending some of these invites to, it makes it very interesting kind of navigating the whole, OG, official golf world rankings and stuff. But anyway, Scotty had the baby. He's here. He's won 4 of 5. He looks like a world beater, no matter what. And you almost get an asterisk with any win that doesn't involve Scotty. Rory has gone ahead and done that a couple times with Scotty on baby watch, right? Goes out and wins, gets good vibes going with Lowry in the team event, and then just absolutely does peak Rory stuff yesterday at Quail Hollow. Awesome to watch. Just absolutely clinic off the tee. Then you get Brooks. And this is what happened last year with Brooks. We got a little bit hot heading into major season. Won on live heading into the PGA last year. Did it again in Singapore. And now all of a sudden you have kind of this influx of those three kind of separating themselves. And then right behind that, you got another tier of just fantastic golfers. I mean, obviously what we saw yesterday with Xander is going to be tough for some people to swallow. Not really being able to finish. And that's kind of the Xander MO in the mix. Nice, lovely cashing a top 10, but you really can't seal the deal. John Rahm probably really pissed. No one's talking about John Rahm this week whatsoever. Has not won on live. Still has to be considered a top 5 player in the world. A afterthought for all intents and purposes this week, which is kind of wild, but that's where we're at. And then you have, there's so many good storylines. I love Major League. I love that we're here, Ron. So talk to me about Valhalla. We obviously haven't been here in a very long time. Again, another great storyline. This is the home of the last Rory major. The fact that he is still one of the top 3, 5, 2 players in the world, even though he hasn't won a major in a decade, I think is impressive and confusing at the same time. But what changes that have happened here, what we should look for. Very, very daunting, stretching par 71 here in Kentucky.
Yeah, so this course, kind of like you mentioned, it's almost like these courses have turned into U.S. Open light courses, and it definitely resembles some of the length of the most recent ones. Kiowa, Southern Hills, Oak Hill. So yeah, it's a brood of a par 71 layout, over 7,600 yards from the tips. So it's kind of got an impressive balance of scenic, risk reward, difficult holes. Some people, complain about how bland it is, especially, the front 9, kind of goes through this open meadow. And, but I think the back 9 is really interesting. There's some unique holes. And so, you've got, this stream that kind of goes through, comes into play on different holes. forces a lot of different strategic decisions. So kind of one of the big changes was when they went to zoysia grass for the fairways, and obviously we have bent grass on the greens. But the zoysia, and that's kind of the thing, they have had a lot of rain, and so their goal was to make the zoysia kind of as bouncy as possible. Like they actually wanted balls running through the fairways and into the bunkers and making that much more tricky. Because the rough here is also, we're talking 4 inches, really thick, lush bluegrass. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays with, is it carry distance? They wanted players to be able to kind of have to control their tee shots and maybe not be able to just blast away off the tee. You do have fairways that are a little bit wider than kind of we've seen in recent PGAs, but they're still not super wide. They're still tree lined. There's still some dog legs. So you're still going to have to be really good off the tee. And, total driving is going to be huge this week. And it's just interesting because a lot of the names you said, like nobody's talking about, Victor Hovland, who, obviously had a great tee to green week last week, so, yeah. Is he back? We know Max Homa is so good on these types of long classical courses. Even Patrick Cantlay kind of fits the bill this week as well. So yeah, it's just really interesting to see, all these guys, and, playing from the rough is going to be key. You've got really tricky undulating greens. And so again, like they always try to make it, you're going to need every club in your bag. And I definitely think distance, kind of like last week, what we saw with Rory is going to be really key this week.
Yeah, another great week where access to the rabbit hole is crucial to be able to look at, whether it's corollary courses, looking at difficult scoring conditions on long golf courses against elite fields where you're really trying to hone in on some of these things that are resembling a major. I think it's a great rabbit hole week. And I don't think it's a week to get overly complicated in it too. And, part of it is, I don't know that you're going to find a ton in terms of like statistical deep dives that you maybe down the board, maybe finishing position, maybe you're back into your DFS lineups and stuff like that. Some guys that could fit in there that maybe would surprise you. But in terms of like going out and winning this tournament, the pool, I really do think is, 25, 30 guys. Just to do it over the course of 4 rounds. And at this point, like it really is a thing. I think you can capture that with the top 3 of the guys that we just talked about. But can you go out and beat Scotty Scheffler for 4 days? Like that's the question you have to answer when you're clicking on someone down the board to win the golf tournament. And I know that could be hyperbole to some and prisoner of the moments because we're getting captured, this like what's been going on, but like it's just been different as of late. And I feel like, of course, when you talk about total driving, you need to be long and straight. He's kind of really good at that. You need to navigate tricky around the green short game. It's kind of what separates him from everyone else. Now, what happens when you get on the green? Obviously, we know it can be volatile, but that's just a question you have to answer when you're clicking an outright bet on early before we get started here this week. So yeah, head over to the site if you want to. Again, you want to read the best preview that you can out there. Ron has done that once again here for his Valhalla preview up now on Betsperts Golf. You're going to get all the information. I promise you, he is leaving no stone unturned in trying to put this together for you to prepare you the best way possible. Course history, stuff you just, if you're a golf hardo and nerd, like this is like really cool stuff. And that might not necessarily help you this week in terms of like making a pick. But I think it will deepen and better your knowledge of golf as you go ahead and read this and understand some of the stuff that's gone in here. Obviously, you can get some course history of what's gone on here in the past at U.S. Opens and PGA Championships. This is fantastic. Finishing positions and strokes gained data, along with the course details that we just kind of touched on. So yeah, obviously a stretching 7,600 yard par 71 from the tips, the Zoysia grass, the bent. We just don't have a combination. I think Zoysia fairways, bent grass greens. Is that just the Zozo? And that's like barely 7,000 yards, right? Like not a great course.
Yeah, there's not many with Zoysia. So I'm sticking mostly to that profile of long, tough, difficult, long, rough type courses.
Totally agree. So head over to the site, check this out. It tells you basically, how to build a model too. If you want to mess around and do your own stuff, you get a sense of what Ron is prioritizing this week as well. Want to let you know some cheap ways to get started with us. If you have not got a subscription with us at Betsperts Golf, you can check out an easy way to do it with our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Everyone knows Underdog. It's available in, I believe, a little over 40 states. Their pick'em games were a great opportunity. Last week, they already have pick'em posted for round one and some stuff for this week, which is, I think, a huge edge to jump in. I already fired on a couple of things this morning. I think there are some really nice numbers and some stuff out there. Hop in the Discord. I've already shared a couple of slips this morning for subscribers. We'll have some more stuff here on the site. But if you are a new user, you've not signed up, use promo code Betsperts Golf. You can get not only up to a $250 bonus, your first deposit will have a special pick 'em play ready for you as well. And if you do so, use that promo code and you do not have a Betsperts Golf subscription, if you deposit at least $10, use that promo code, you can get access to 3 months of Betsperts Golf for just that $10 deposit. So no additional cost to you. Use that promo code, sign up at Underdog, start firing on some pick'ems. They're fantastic. And you will get 3 months to take you through the rest of the summer, the rest of the majors, basically the heart here of the remaining 2024 season. Hit us up if you have any specific questions, but a great offer from our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. All right, let's take a look at the opening odds here from our friends over at the Lines. They have a great little odds table here. Just refresh because this obviously moves a ton here on a Monday morning. Scotty, we had the baby watch is over. He is here. Burns baby happened to. So no more baby watch for Scotty and Sam. They have their kids. They're ready to go. Rory, right behind him now at 8. There were 10s floating in the weekend. Obviously, what he did push that number down. Brooks there appropriately next, I think, on the board. 16 available over at Bet Rivers, which I think is an interesting number. Ludwig obviously did not play at Quail Hollow, but again, another spot where total driving, long and straight, plays really well. Ludwig there short of 20 everywhere. I don't think we're getting back to 20 on Ludwig, so 18 looks like the best number. Xander pretty much painted 16s across the board. Not unusual for Caesars to be, especially early on a Monday. Caesars doesn't get super aggressive. They'll wait and see how the market shapes. But again, Caesars is willing to take significant money. So they're good for them. I don't begrudge Caesars for being short there. And you get John Rahm there at 20, Bryson 28, Colin Morikawa at 28, Max Homa 33, and you get into a big chunk of guys in the 40 range. Some of the guys that Ron mentioned there too, which I think are very interesting. That's the top of the board. Again, 4.5 on Scotty is something that's very difficult to stomach, which I understand. Again, you're basically going to get plus 100 to T5, which is also very tough to stomach. But again, it's where he's at, and I think he's earned his place at the very, very tip top of the board this week. So going to be interesting to see how these drift. I know, Ron, you've had an interesting, I think, approach. It changed a little bit this year, and then maybe you could talk to that. You and I both fire very early, typically on a Monday morning, wait for these odds to get out. Obviously, a major's a little bit different because these have been available. We do have kind of a reshuffle typically on a Monday morning. You've waited for some drift a little bit more this season than the last couple of years we've been doing this together. Talk to me about that a little bit and what you advise people to do a little bit here on a Monday morning.
Yeah, it's been a weird year, and it's also obviously difficult when Scotty is just being so dominant, and you just can't bet something like a 400 or anything like that, or 4-1. I mean, so yeah, they've been drifting, and so what I've been kind of doing is, even like a couple of days ago, I saw a guy like a Ben On who's sitting there at 110, and he's really a great fit for this course. A guy like that who's really long off the tee and who's really good ball striking around the greens. Obviously, putting has always been his issue, but we've kind of seen him trending. And so I kind of like to, if I see in kind of the books just not paying attention on like even a few days before an event like this, especially a major, that's kind of what I'm looking for, just kind of maybe a sneaky play here and there. But a lot of these numbers, like they're just drifting as the week goes on. And, especially Rory, coming off a win like that. And, I think he's going to kind of gain momentum as the week goes. And, hopefully some of these other mid-range guys will continue to maybe drift a little bit lower. And so I've just been a lot more patient recently and haven't had the best success with it yet. But I just think strategically, it's probably just it's a good option to have. To I think just waiting and being a little more patient and yeah, you're seeing already some of these guys. Kind of you see Wyndham Clark. Maybe people overreacting off a poor week last week. He's already down to 40. Zal, he was, I know we talked about this. He was at 50 and, he's at 70. So, it's interesting to see how far guys like that will drop. And maybe, even this morning, some of these guys, it's a good time to jump on.
Yeah. Zalatoris, interesting call out. I mean, 50 was the best. I thought we wouldn't see much more than 50. Then we get obviously a 70 here and some 60s out there too, which is, interesting for sure. I took 50. I took some more 70 just because it's just a guy that just has played so well on the most difficult golf courses. Again, hasn't sealed the deal per se, which is, obviously a next step, but I don't buy the fact that Zalatoris can't win this golf tournament because he doesn't win prolific fashion all the time. So yeah, 70. I took more 70 after taking some 52. So yeah, this is an interesting little section of guys on the board too. I think the Wyndham Clark call out is very appropriate. It feels like too big of a number for a guy that probably has 4 wins if Scotty Scheffler doesn't exist this season. One in a unique track too, winning at Pebble this year, which is interesting, getting white hot with the putter. One at a place where you mentioned being a little bit wider in the fairways here comparatively. We know that, everyone just thinks about the shot on 18, poor Wyndham. Everyone just thinks of that just absolute bomb on 18 that he hit at LACC. Like, it's not like he just was spraying it all over the yard all week. Like, he kept himself in play and did what he needed to do to win there. So yeah, he's won at Quail Hollow before. Definitely an interesting player. So yeah, this is an interesting section for sure. I don't know what to do with this week. I have a bunch of futures that it gives me a little bit more ability to get aggressive and take some other lines because I have a 24 on Scotty. So that feels pretty good. I have a 30 on Ludwig. That feels pretty good. 45 on Max. So like some bigger numbers, and that, I still haven't made any of the decisions, but I'm going to probably get in here somewhere near the top on something else. So I don't know if that's Brooks or just, maybe fire at this 40 range with a bunch of guys, but it's a great week. Let's play around with some data here on the rabbit hole and see what we can get from a high level standpoint. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, for me, obviously ball striking is huge this week. Approach always key. I'll probably start off the tee. Obviously, I think that's going to be the foundation of kind of what you're looking for this week. We've talked already about the length of this course. The 5th longest course used on tour, including majors since 2016. So, yeah, I'm looking for guys. Obviously, right off the bat, off the tee, we've got so many options to go to here. Just kind of looking at driving distance. I'll definitely look at good drive percentage as well.
Yep.
Just the ability to guys who can just find the greens. We've got some elevated greens this week, and not sure how firm they're going to make them, but with the slope, we could see some balls, kind of being repelled. And, with that thick rough, players trying to chip, that's going to be another challenging part of this course as well. So just guys, even if you just find the green surface. So those two, and, you could sprinkle in some carry distance as well, if it's going to be as soft as some people are saying.
A lot of ways, I think, to try to capture driving and the importance of driving and setting yourself up with that second shot this week. So yeah, lots of unique ways. Total driving. So I know total driving is going to be a thing this week, and I understand the thought around it. I continue to push back on driving accuracy as a stat. So I probably will do personally a hand build driving distance where I'd rather just capture distance from the edge of the fairway versus, pure binary yes, no on the fairway. That might not matter here in terms of like first cut, or just that grass is thick either way. But I think this tells me a little bit of a better story of, how guys are going to be close to keeping themselves in play off the tee and how much that matters this week. So good drives is a great call out too. And you can see, you could just kind of hover over any of these stats and it'll tell you what the actual definition of it is. And this is telling you basically, you can put a filter on this looking at, maybe thick rough too, right? Long rough, and see on par 4 and 5, the number of fairways hit plus the number of greens and reg. when the drive was not in the fairway on tee shots divided by the number of 4s and 5s. So basically, are you still getting yourself in scoring position on the greens when you miss the fairway here? So
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll definitely go into that. We have the option to go to put the filter on high for missed fairway penalty. And so, guys who know, some of these guys, like a Corey Connors, they're just fairway finders. And if, even if you look, that's a great call, distance from the edge of the fairway, because, you got your subset of guys who, they're just so accurate, and, the rough and all these other, the dog legs are just not going to affect them as much. And so kind of looking for those guys combined with distance, I think that's kind of the ultimate thing that you're searching for. Going back and looking at even 2014, I know that was a decade ago. I know the course has changed somewhat, but 10 of the top 13 guys, actually 10 of the top 15 guys on that leaderboard were also in the top 15 for driving distance for the week. So, I think that's going to ring true this week. And yeah, with good drive percentage, what I like to do with that, and I know we're not on approach yet, is I'll look at, courses that have, that are tough to gain on approach. And even though this is an off the tee section, that's kind of the reason for it, because these greens are tough to hit. And so I'll kind of mix those two together and look at good drive percentage on difficult approach courses.
I like that a lot. Yeah. I mean, that's the tricky part, right? And the more we've had time with some of these newer stats to model, the more you try to think through the storytelling piece of what we're trying to get, the end goal of the stat, versus just be like, oh, I was told that driving accuracy matters this week. Well, it does, but in the context of also being able to have the ability to have some distance and to get yourself in and score. So you're not going to be, this is not a place where the fairway finders of the world are just going to be, in good shape, right? Looking at, no offense to Zach Blair, or no offense to Michael Block, who is here again this week, who looks good from an accuracy standpoint or a distance from the edge of the fairway standpoint. Like, those guys are going to have a little bit of trouble this week to be able to get themselves in, scoring position. Because, again, regardless of what happens, we're going to get some rain. We've got a lot of rain in Kentucky. I think we're going to get more rain on Tuesday. And you have the Zoysia situation here. It's either way, distance is going to matter, whether it's spongy and playing firm and fast, or if it's just going to be a spot where, ball is going to come to lay rest off of a high tee shot. So distance is going to matter no matter what you do. So let's do a hybrid of, we'll do driving distance. This is last 12 months. And distance from the edge of the fairway. We'll create our own total driving here. I go back 12 months here. This is going to give us a little minimum 12 rounds. This will hopefully give us some of the live guys. We'll see here. Let's go back. I'm going to go back to strokes gained. I want to look at some things here. I want overarching things this week that I think really matter in terms of just what we expect at a PGA championship, what we expect at a US Open. We have very difficult scoring conditions on a very long golf course against a very strong field. You can look at all. I think this is one of those times where that's a bunch of things. I think you can kind of look at all of it at once, or you can kind of just mix it up. You can kind of, round robin those few things. Ron mentions, and we're driver heavy this week, Ron. We have long rough. We have a penalty for missed fairways. So these are a few things that I think that you can probably round robin to see, it might be some overlap and you probably double counting a few of it, but that's okay. I want those guys to be rewarded for their success in these settings, because I think that's the stickiest statistical profile of anything that we have this week, versus overfitting a 6-month stat that might not capture 16 live guys that are here for a reason, right? So just if I peel back 3, 4, 5 years of guys that have played really well on difficult golf courses, I think that tells me a better story of what I'm looking to do this week. So we'll look at here. Very difficult scoring conditions, long and very long. I'll capture both because we've touched on before. We want to get out the average courses. We want to get out the short courses who's played well. You can also, again, do very strong fields, which is really what we have here this week. Well, let's just see what kind of sample we get when we add all of these here. I'm backed out, I think, to 3 years. No, 12 months. So let's back out a little bit. Let's see what we get. Yeah, 50, 40 rounds or so for a lot of these guys. Again, I have a 12-round feature. Again, this makes sense to me. This is a top of the board strokes gained total. Who's performed best? over the last 3 years in these instances. You can click in here and see what these courses are too. But again, something that has Scotty, Rory, Xander at the top feels somewhat predictive. What are your thoughts on some of this week?
Yeah, I mean, those are names I would fully expect to be up there. And, just kind of going back to what you said, this is a week where you have a very specific type of course, and these courses have been played before in these conditions. And so even we have, again, great week for the rabbit hole because, not only do we have these things that nobody else has, but, you can just simply, if you just want to go click on majors and see how have these guys just performed in major events, which is going to be a lot of the same courses that we have selected right there. But that's another option you have as well. And yeah, so, I'll do it different ways. I'll combine them together like you just did. I'll take, I'll take out the easy courses and I'll even go average, difficult, very difficult for each one, scoring conditions, length, field strength. And so there's just a wide variety of ways you could use the information. But I think, like you said, this week for me, I know you're a little more shorter term guy. For me, I'm going back maybe even 5 years just to get even more of that historical data. And so, yeah, like even when you do that, you're going to see a guy like Brooks who is just like, when you actually go back and look at what he's done, when you look at PGA championships and US Opens, like it's just staggering. Like his total strokes gain, he's at 149 total strokes gained in PGAs and US Opens since 2017. The second guy behind him is Xander at 110. So like there's just such a huge gap there. And so I think going back a little further this week, especially, kind of lets you see that a little better maybe.
Love it. Love that call. And you can get in here specifically. You want to highlight some of these courses that we're talking about here. You can go ahead and do that. And I think it's interesting. Like, let's look at, we were at Oak Hill last year. Before that, we were at Southern Hills. Before that, we were at Kiowa, which is Ocean Course. Yep. Ocean Course at Kiowa. Before that, we were at Harding Park. I want to leave Harding Park out. Bethpage, which is where we were before that. Then we were at Bellerive. This is giving us, again, like PGA Championship, US Opens. And we were at LACC. This is our US Open because I do think we started to kind of blend into what's going on at LACC. Then we're at the Country Club in Brookline. Then we're at Torrey. Again, Torrey South. Again, different, but like still, we're not capturing all that because obviously Torrey, we play all the time for the farmers. But again, long, thick, rough, driver heavy, wing foot. Right? You want to see who's done well in these courses. This is specific. Like you can look at majors, but then you're getting a lot of the Masters data, and then you're getting Open Championships, which I think are unique onto themselves. So they, the major feature is nice. I want to work on having, maybe the ability down the line to have a filter for all these a little bit differently. So here is your strokes gained on these specific golf courses. And look, you can look at, average strokes gained. You see why you have the tie here. A little separated actually when you do it this way. Will Zalatoris, again, currently 70-1, is your best golfer at these golf courses over the last handful of years. These are your US Opens and your PGAs in the last 5 years. For the most part, we obviously excluded, I think, just Harding Park. But you can add Harding Park if you want. Like, I don't want to be an anti-Harding Park guy, but this is why Zalatoris is getting our money at 50 and 70-1. Rory, Jake Knapp, 4 rounds. You can go ahead and filter these guys out. You can see Ludwig has only played 4 rounds here. Really super small sample. But the rest of the guys you would kind of expect. This is your Brooks stuff. He's such a unique historical character because he just, most guys that have this many majors, I mean, he could win a 4th PGA championship. He just doesn't have that many actual PGA Tour wins. This is, again, that like old school, I only care about majors thing. Such a unique historical character. It'd be interesting to see what the story is of Brooks down the line. But yeah, I think this is a nice place to look in terms of, who's played well on these golf courses this week. And this is something you could do here with the rabbit hole. So we'll add this just for fun. We'll look at corollary courses and add that just to look. Again, there are so many ways to skin the cat here in the rabbit hole. So it's up to you with how you want to build this. This might be not useful for you. You can go in here and look at expert rankings. You want to see, Andy Lack, Inside Golf Podcast, Matt Vicenzi tapping in podcast. You'll see my model, Ron's model. You want to see the stats that we're adding, you can go ahead and do that here as well, which I think is a unique feature. About approach, we'll go back to approach. What's a great way to handle that this week? I mean, obviously some filters, high level. What are you thinking? What's some of the best ways to look at approach this week?
So yeah, this is another approach week with proximity. Looking at a lot of long irons here, so 200 plus. You could even go down to 175 plus. I think being able to hit from the rough is a skill we're definitely looking for this week. There's going to be guys who, look, everyone's going to miss fairways at a certain point, and so we always hear this in majors, especially you go back to places like Winged Foot. I don't know if bomb and gouge. I don't know if that's the strategy this week or not, but guys who have had past success hitting from a thick rough, and in our filter, you can go and look at actual, if you want a high rough penalty, or if you just want to look at rough that's long, different ways to do it. But I definitely think that's something I'm gonna look a little closer at, especially from those longer distances. So obviously good drive percentage, we said before. I'm going to kind of tie that together with approach. And yeah, looking back, even at the rabbit hole, one of the things that, you can do is obviously, like I said, is selecting, other courses that, instead of having to go through and pick each individually, we have a subset that I created where, all the courses that are difficult on approach, you can just click that filter and it's going to populate all those courses for you and show you past performances. So that's another thing. Going for the green, this is a tricky week for that because, you've got 2 of the 3 par 5s, that are kind of risky. You got a lot of bunkers and water players are dealing with. The eagle percentage on the 7th and the 10th is like a combined, when you average them out, it's like 1.1%. So not really as much of a going for the green aggressive week as others that I've gone through. But for me, it's going to just kind of looking at that approach on difficult courses and mostly looking at those longer iron ranges.
Love it. Yeah, you can look at both just approach. You can look at approach from the rough. You can look at approach from the fairway. I do think it's going to matter in capturing all of it somehow. Does make sense here. This is just looking at long and average rough. So again, just taking out the short stuff. This is definitely a long rough place. I just worry that sample gets a little bit convoluted. So we want to take out some of the short stuff here. This is just rough greens and reg over the last 18 months, minimum 12 rounds. Scotty Scheffler at the top, not super surprising. Some of the guys towards the top that you would expect. Again, decent sample, 54 rounds from Ludwig here. 8th, Will Zalatoris 9th, Rory right here at 11th, Wyndham Clark 13th. Some other guys where the length is a real advantage, which, that's Steven Yeager's that kind of guy. Bryson's that kind of guy. Akshay. So yeah, definitely interesting. Again, so many ways to go about your research this week. So I'm going to pop this in here for us. And then just for the sake of it, this is again, just if people are watching and seeing this for the first time, want to show people how to model and what that looks like. I'll go ahead and I'll keep this on and we'll just look at strokes gained in this same bucket with long and average length. Let's see who's populating there. Some similar names. Again, some of your better approach guys here too. I think makes a ton of sense. We'll just add that and give it a smaller weight approach. All right, let's do maybe one more thing here. When you do something, well, tell me if we need to do something around the green or the best way to do that, maybe something from a putting or scoring standpoint. And we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, so around the green, I'm definitely looking at scrambling this week. Not having seen these greens much, just based on what I've read, there's some sloping, some undulations. Obviously, on approach, you want to hit the right quadrant. But just in general, I think, a couple ways you can do it. Obviously, bogey avoidance is going to be really key this week. So I will go to the, I'll keep it on that same difficult scoring conditions filter. And I'll look at both bogey avoidance and scrambling because those kind of both capture, past conditions on kind of similar courses that are, whether it's long, thick rough like you're going to have around the green this week, maybe not as much of a short grass chipping week. Just trying to battle with that, bluegrass. So I'll kind of look at both of those for sure.
Love it. So let's look at this is bogey avoidance last 12 months in very difficult scoring conditions. Again, like these guys are here for a reason. Not super surprising names here at the top. So we'll add that, and then we'll go back and we'll look at that scrambling in the same subset. We'll keep these filters on, and let's see what we get when we just pop out this first look. Like I said, you would probably want to build more things into your model. We're just going to keep it high level here and do
and I'll just say, just for people who are going to go deeper, so you also definitely probably want to look at fast greens. These greens are going to be 13 at the start of the week on the stem meter, going probably up to 14. So I think they're going to be really speedy. And I'm not really looking as much as just bent grass, because bent grass is the purest surface, and if you can putt on bent grass, you can pretty much putt on any surface. I'm just kind of looking at putting in general from a fast perspective this week. And another thing I'm really interested to look at is, these are very difficult par 4 holes. Actually, well, there's 6 of them that are longer than 460 yards. And so another thing we have in the rabbit hole is the ability to look at other courses that have difficult par 4s. And so I'll punch that in as well, and just kind of see, what kind of players, can kind of get some separation on those par 4 holes that historically have played those types of holes really well.
Love it. This is the stuff you're going to get in Ron's content. This is the stuff you're going to get in the Discord. We talk about having to build some of this stuff out. Obviously, you have access to us directly there. So definitely are willing to help you out in terms of talking through some of these stats, talking through ways to build better models and improve your player pool here. So we'll look here. Difficult scoring conditions, fast greens, over the last 12 months. So this is our fast difficulty. Again, you don't have to put anything in here from a description standpoint. It's just, again, for notation purposes. You can also download any of these into a CSV, build out in Excel, all the different types of models, hybrid models, subset. You can do all of that here with the rabbit hole as well, which is definitely awesome feature. But
hey, go really quick to the miscellaneous, and just really quick, this is another great week we have club head speed. Nobody else really has this, where you can, a week like this where you're in the rough, and the greater your club head speed, the more the ability to get the ball out of the rough, and even ball speed. Looking for distance this week. I think you see I haven't researched it totally yet, but a really big corollary here with guys who play well in these long courses, who have high ball speed, high club head speed. So I think that's another key thing to look at that some people might not really think about, but just another thing to analyze.
I love it. I'm a fan. I don't model it often, but I do look at apex height a lot too, because I do think that there's something to be said for the ability to hold greens too, especially as you're talking about these things being at 13 or maybe getting baked out as the weekend goes along too, possibly after this rain dries up a little bit, where it's just harder to hold the green when you're coming in with something not quite as high. So the ability to have a high apex is definitely interesting too. And again, like, we get a bigger sample while we're in the miscellaneous stuff. The AM PM scoring stuff to me is interesting too. When you're looking at, first round leader stuff, and you're looking at early round matchup stuff, I think that stuff, when you have a full field like we have here, not a 68 man field where everyone's kind of within, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's really hard to get AM PM splits. Like, I think this matters a little bit more too.
And if you click on average, I like to do this too. You can see the separation. So you can see the differences between, guys who may be first and second, but there may be a gap in between some of these. So that's another interesting thing to look at, the exact raw data as well, if you really want to get into that.
Yeah. Obviously, when you do that with anything Scotty, that's, I think, telling too, because he's, someone's second on the list. But when you actually look at the raw data for some of these things, I think the Bryson or the Brooks PGA data, I think, is a great example of that, where there's such a chasm between 1 and 2, and you don't get that full story by just looking at the ranking. So yeah, good stuff there. All right, let's click this create mixed condition model button and see what we get. We put in a bunch of things actually. So this is Ron and Noonan first look. PGA first look. We'll save this for folks if they want to go back and look at it. We just got to change our weights a little bit. And again, you do whatever you want here. Driving distance, I think, matters a ton. I want to go here with bigger stuff. I want this to get a big piece, just difficult, long, strong field stuff. Let's go corollary courses. We'll knock that down a little bit. Well, this is our hybrid total driving number. We'll give that 20% because I think that matters quite a bit. Although, you know what, I'm going to change. This is why I'm going to do it. I'm going to make this 7. We're going to get wonky here and make this 13 because I think distance is the more important stat there. You can see we have too many. This is 11. We'll make this 10. Just going down quick. Again, I would obviously put more thought into what we would be wanting to do here if we are unlimited amount of time, which we are not. Make that 5, and we'll knock this down to 10. We'll knock this down to, actually, I like putting to be a little bit less if I can. I'd rather give a little bit more to the approach stuff. Make this 20. We'll make it 19 for math purposes. Let's see what we get. Probably Scotty, Rory in some form. Brooks obviously still going to be impacted a little bit without all the data here. Scotty Scheffler 1, Rory 2, Xander 3, Victor Hovland 4. And Victor, you know, like the thick around the green stuff probably helps him too, right? Versus having to pick it clean off the short grass. John Rahm 5, Colin Morikawa 6, Max Homa 7, Hideki broke hearts last week 8, Hill Drift. I think this week no one wants to bet Hideki right now. Ty Hatton, very interesting to me at 9, and Wyndham Clark rounds out your top 10. Again, your rest of your top 20 is some names you're probably expecting to be up there as well. So again, very interesting week to get started here. Appreciate you hanging out with us on this first look this morning. Go over and take advantage of our deal with Underdog. Get in there, promo code Betsperts Golf. You probably already have an Underdog account. If you have Underdog in your state, it's probably unlikely that you don't have it already. You play, obviously, you know, drafts, but their pick'em games in particular are awesome. In terms of like the competition that's out there in the market, the number of markets that you get per player at Underdog just dwarfs everyone else, unfortunately. Last week, there was a great way to look at the closing hole stretch. The Green Mile at Quail Hollow, 16, 17, 18. Like, there was an early edge taking over on those. This week, right now, I think there's an advantage on bogeys on some of the numbers that are out there on Underdog cards. So they're going to be bogeys. Take advantage of that. Use promo code Betsperts Golf. You'll get 3 months for just that $10 deposit over there at Underdog Fantasy. Maybe your wife needs an account, or maybe you know, your 18-year-old son needs an account over. Take advantage of that. Get 3 months at Betsperts Golf. So appreciate you hanging out with us. Subscribe to the channel before you take off. Come back on Tuesday for the betting show, Wednesday for the DFS show, and check us out. As always, we appreciate you hanging out with us. So for Ron, I'm Noonan. We'll see you all soon. Thanks, everyone.